Hi, everybody. It's Brett Simon. I'm back after a fairly long trip. I've been back at work for a week or so, but I've been very busy. So I thought I'd jump on. It's an unusual time of day and an unusual day of the week for me to be online, but perhaps there's someone around who has some questions. So happy to take any questions you've got on the Green Card Lottery. Let me start off by just talking about something I know I'm going to be asked about, which is the DV 2020 and DV 2021 lawsuits. The appeals have not been decided yet. We're still waiting on the appeal court decision. It's been a long wait, and it's very difficult to guess what the outcome will be. There's no way I can guess what the outcome will be. But we just have to be patient. We just have to wait a little bit longer, and see what the answer will be. I can't imagine they're going to take that much longer, but we'll have to see. There's no way we can guarantee a date or a time. They're not forced to make a decision within a certain amount of time. Let me just close this blind to improve the light. There you go. That'll be better. So anyway, so let's talk about other questions that you may have. This is going to be another one that I was expecting. When will the new link come out? I think you mean the new lottery details, DV 2024. It'll be May 6th, about a week from now. It'll be in noon, which will be in. Let me just check that actually, but it will be on the East Coast time zone. It won't be exactly noon in your country, wherever you live. It'll be on the East Coast time zone. So let me just check that. Lottery instructions. Okay, let's just make absolutely sure I shouldn't give you false information here. All right, so conceals my TV. Just need to quickly check the instructions here. May 6th, 2023. It doesn't say, what I'm looking at doesn't show the time of day. It's normally noon on the Eastern time zone, Washington, D.C. time, right? So that's 5 hours behind London time. And you can figure it out from there, I guess. But that's basically when I would expect it to be out. Now, when you go in and check on that, of course, you're going to see one of two letters, essentially, or one of two results. The first will say you have not been selected. And that means you weren't selected in the lottery, and that's not likely to change. There are some years where a second allocation of winners is announced, and that happens around about September or October. But there's no point in checking every week or every month after May 6th, between May 6th and October. You just check again one more time in October. And that's why they tell you to keep hold of your confirmation code. If you've forgotten your confirmation code, you'll be able to get it through the lottery checking website. You need to enter some basic information there, like the name, date of birth, I believe, and the email address that you used on the original entry, and then you can get your confirmation code. So that's pretty straightforward. But anyway, May 6th is the date. Okay, moving to US in June. Wanted to ask how long it takes to get the Social Security number and green card, as I'm eager to apply for jobs prior to arrival. Okay, so you don't get either of those things before you arrive. You have to arrive, and it's only by arriving that you become a lawful permanent resident and that you become eligible to have the green card process. So no matter whether you start by paying your fee early before you arrive or not, doesn't make any difference. You have to arrive, right? The Social Security number, if you've asked for that in the DS-260, typically comes out between 2 to 3 weeks, roughly. If it hasn't come out by the third week, you should go to the Social Security office. And actually, the Social Security number is probably more important to you than the green card itself. You'll understand that more when you have it. People in general don't ask to see your green card. I don't think I was ever asked to see it, perhaps one time when I had my green card. So, it's not such a big deal. But the social security number is important. You use it on various things. You would use it when you apply for credit cards, even if they're secure credit cards. You use it getting a rental apartment. You use it for a job, of course, and so you'll need that faster. You're eager to apply for jobs prior to arrival. Yeah, if you've got a particularly strong set of skills, niche set of skills in some area that is in very short supply over here, then maybe you'll get recruiters and companies to take you seriously. But in general, most people find that they really only get traction on applying for jobs once they're actually in the country and they're local to recruiters, because the recruiters don't really believe or understand the process of arriving by a green card. They don't understand it. And it's much easier for them to just focus on local candidates. So they tend to ignore you. Fausto, thank you for saying thank you, and good luck to you. The Blue Sea says, "What is your real name?" My real name is Simon. Why do you think that? Why do you think that's not me? And I'm British, hence why I call myself Brit Simon. But DV 2021, Curtis, I discussed this right at the beginning of the video, so you can rewind and have a look at that. It's a very long wait, I agree with you, and I said that earlier on in the video. Have a quick question. Can the DV program take more than 7% per certain countries? No. There will be more than 7% of the total number of winners allocated to some of the countries, possibly. But no single country can get more than 7% of the total global allocation. And that's the same in all immigration law. It's the same with non-DV immigration as well. So 7% is an absolute hard limit. The reality is almost no country gets anywhere close to that in terms of issued visas. They get that number or more as selectees, but not as issued visas. And the country that is most likely to get closest to that 7% limit typically is Nepal. The Nepalese have a very high rate of, they get a good number of selectees, then a lot of the selectees apply for the green card. A lot of them are typically approved, and so they get closest. There are other countries where they have more winners than Nepal, more selectees, but their rates of approval and their rates of application actually are lower than Nepal. So that's why Nepal does better. So there you go. Nisa says, I live in Pakistan and all my education is in Pakistan. Doesn't make any difference. The only thing that is important is where you were born. You can't, as a Pakistani, you can't apply. If you were born in Pakistan, you can't apply for the lottery unless you are married to a non-Pakistani, someone who is not born in Pakistan, or possibly you're through parentage. In a certain exception, which I've discussed before. I won't go into the details now. Is an LPR allowed to sign an I-134 form to sponsor a DV winner? Yes, they are. I would never recommend that a non-immigrant, like on an H-1 visa or something like that, tries to sponsor or be a sponsor for you. That's because you're kind of on a temporary basis. But an LPR, a green card holder, is there permanently. And so as long as they have some track history of tax payments and that sort of thing, they've been here at least a couple of years, they've been paying tax, they've got a job, then yes, they can sign an I-134. Do you think the next bullet of Asia will go current? It's frozen since February. I have no idea. I think people don't, I'm sure people don't understand why the number has stayed at 18,750. The reality is, under 18,750, there are probably enough selectees to fill the quota. Now, I think they will increase the number a little bit, but going current at this point would be quite odd, actually. So we'll have to wait and see. I think, let's see, Asia has 4,800 visas already issued and has nearly 3,000 people who are ready status. Now, not all of the 3,000 people will be approved, but or will even proceed. They won't even turn up for their interviews. Some of those people will not turn up for their interviews or have already not turned up for their interviews. But there are also 1,500 people in AP status or 221G. So, so if you take the 4,800 plus, let's say, half of the people who are in AP status, let's say that's another 750. We're at 5,500 or so, 5,600. And then let's say we take 2,000 out of the 2,900 already at ready status and say they'll be issued. We would be at 7,600, right? Now the quota for Asia is only about 8,500 visas, so we're within 1,000 or so. So you have to understand, although it may feel frustrating that the visa bulletin number has stayed the same number, they actually have done already more than enough to schedule the people they need to schedule in order to reach the quota. Now, the next question will be, will they get more additional quota? And since Africa is under-issued at the moment, it's possible that Africa will donate some of its visas. It gets nearly 25,000 visas allocated to it, close 24,500. It's possible that some of those will be donated to the other regions, including Asia. And so we could see Asia exceeding the 8,500, but that won't take a massive increase in the visa bulletin number. So we have to wait and see. I can't predict what will happen. What's your concern about getting 2NL for June visa bulletin? I don't understand that question. I mean, obviously everybody's concerned about getting their 2NL, but so I don't really understand your question really. Was there a second draw for DV 2022? No, there isn't a second draw when they over select people in the beginning of the year. DV 2022 had 118,000 selectees, far too many. There were too many selectees. So there was no point in adding additional selectees in September, October of that year. That's completely pointless. And those additional selectees would have even higher case numbers, and so they would have been at the back of the line. In the end, out of the 118,000 people that were selected, it only took interviewing 72,000 of those in order to issue over 55,000 visas, right? So in reality, we don't need 118,000 people to be selected. That was too many, and therefore there's no point in adding more to it, and that's why there was no second draw in DV 2022. In fact, the last year I think it happened was DV 2018, I think, from memory, but I could be wrong about that. But it doesn't happen every year by any means. Nicole, I thought I'd probably get a few Aussies if I came on at this time. Do you know why Sydney Embassy hasn't been scheduling interviews? Or is OC 1300 and have been current since the last two bulletins, but still no interview email? Thank you. It's not true to say they haven't been scheduling, I don't think. Let me just check that. Really, let's just check that. Sydney. No, they have been scheduling interviews. The problem isn't Sydney. The problem was when you became allocated to the AVQ. So you were current, but were you processed, right? Did you submit your DS-260 late? Is that why you weren't processed early enough? But I can tell you in January, they took 18 cases, which is about right for them. In February, they took 22 cases. In March, they took 15 cases. So they've taken cases every month. And prior to January 1st, they had taken 46 cases. So they are working, they are scheduling interviews, and I don't see that that's a particularly low number compared to the number of visas I would expect to be issued in Sydney. So it tells me that you were probably late in submitting, or your DS260 took a long time to process, and therefore you weren't ready for the 2NL to be sent to you when you became current with your number, right? So I would expect, Nicole, for you to get that in the next month or two at the outside, but you know when you submitted the DS260, I don't. And you know what your travel history is, etc. I don't know anything about you, obviously. So I don't know how long it would have taken to process your form. Okay. Missouri. What could be the main reason why some embassies are very slow on DV interviews? A good example is Nairobi versus Dar es Salaam. There are some embassies, particularly in Africa, who have just decided to screw people over. There's no polite way to put that. They have decided that they are in charge of scheduling interviews, and they have decided they're only going to make a limited number of interviews available. They would say that they are prioritizing other types of cases over DV lottery, and they would say that they are allowed to do that based on some guidance they were given a couple of years ago. And the government withdrew that guidance, but nevertheless, the embassies continued operating that way. So they shouldn't be doing it, but we can't stop them doing it. They are entitled to set their own capacity. It's a bizarre system. So KCC did extremely well this year. They had 119,000 selectees for DV 2023. They processed all the DS260s, largely speaking, by February, which was what I was telling people would happen months ago. During last year, people were freaking out because of previous year's DS260 processing, but they did a good job of processing all the DS260s. And then the government have done a good job of scheduling interviews at many of the embassies, but there are a few embassies. There are some embassies that stubbornly refuse to take the number of cases they should be taking. And therefore, people allocated to those embassies will lose out. That's absolutely clear. And you can hope for fairies and Father Christmas to improve that situation, but to be honest, nothing is going to improve that situation until the embassy decides otherwise. So it's a very sad situation. And of course, the other countries, the other embassies are just continuing working, and it's perfectly possible that we could hit the total global quota allocation, and embassies like Nairobi could still be playing stupid games. So it's very unfair, it's very sad, but there's literally nothing we can do. No lawsuit has achieved a direct result. The closest we got was a lawsuit brought by Jesse against Sydney, and Sydney never agreed, and no court never ordered them to work. However, another embassy sort of noticed the chaos and stood up and helped out. And I think that was because of the lawsuit, frankly. But it's a side aspect. It's the lawsuit didn't specifically win. No court, no judge has said an embassy cannot behave this way. They're allowed to behave that way. So there you go. Oh, that's true, Fausto. I hadn't connected, but I do remember seeing the photo. I'm wondering how you're getting on in Houston. It's a great city. Really good fun city. I've been there a couple of times. I'm hoping you're doing well, Fausto, and your lovely family too. Anyway, Mustafa. Okay, it's lucky to have you. Thank you for helping. I'm DV 2023 AF50K and have appointments on 24th of May in London. That's good. I'd like to have some recommendations. The recommendations are: make sure your medical is done. If you can, make sure. It's very expensive in London. I remember that vividly. It's expensive because it's Harley Street is the only doctor they accept, right? Prepare your documentation well. Take everything that you are required to take. There's a list of things that you're required to take, and they're very obvious. If you read the instructions, you know what you're required to take. And then take additional things as well. Take some information that you think might be helpful. For example, financial information. Some embassies, some CEOs will ask about your financial status, and they either want to see bank statements or they want to see an I-134 typically. And London's no exception to that. They could easily ask for that sort of information. But other than that, if you read the instructions, read it again, make sure you've got all your documents well organized, you'll be in good shape. It's really, it's a very easy interview process. They're not looking to refuse people on the DV lottery. You have to really work hard to get refused in the DV lottery. I promise you. You have to basically make a really, avoidable mistake, or you have to be, just not paying attention to the requirements, quite simply. With the exception of a couple of embassies like Accra, where frankly even genuine people can be denied. So, but in London, no, I mean, they're looking to approve you. It would be unusual to not approve you. Okay, determinations arena. I'm new to this. Can the forms be filled without a passport? Yes, they can. There is a place on the DS260. So I'm assuming you're talking about you've been selected and you're now filling the DS260. Firstly, there was a rule that required you to have a passport to actually enter the lottery. That rule was removed. It was struck down by a court. And so it doesn't matter whether you are a winner in DV 2023 and didn't give your passport or whatever. They can't refuse you for not having the passport. On the DS260, you can use another form of ID. You don't have to use a passport, okay? But you need a passport by the time you get to interview because, of course, they're going to give you the visa stamped in your passport. So you need it then, okay? But yeah, you can fill out the forms without it, okay? Nissa says, which certificate is acceptable? The country you're living currently or a person belongs to? A person is living in that country for 15 years, certificates like PPC, marriage, certificate, and birth. Okay, so police certificates need to be presented from multiple countries sometimes, right, depending on your situation. The marriage certificate and the birth certificates are presented from the country where those events took place. So, I was born in Scotland, therefore my birth certificate is always going to come from Scotland. Even if I lived in Switzerland, my birth certificate would be produced by Scotland, right? And so, your documents come from where the event happened. I got married in America to my lovely wife, and so my marriage certificate is American, Hawaiian actually, right? So, that's because my marriage ceremony happened in Hawaii, right? So your documents come from the place where the event happened: marriage, birth, death, your education. There is always an authority who has the control of the place where you were born or where you were married, and they are the authority in charge of producing that document. It's quite simple, right? There's no mystery to this. It's really just a matter of common sense. Okay. Mustafa again, I think I've already answered that. And oh dear, I can see you you're asking the question over and over again. So don't do that, please, Mustafa, and no one else do that, please. Mary says, hi sir, AF11K. I've been reading the interview scheduling since February, but I think Abu Dhabi is slow. No 2NL till now. Yep, they are one of the embassies that is slow. I think, let me just check there. Let me just check there. Yeah, they released in January. They released 57 interviews. Then in February they released 48. In March they released 72, and in April so far they've released 40. So yeah, it's not enough. Frankly, they should be doing more. So fingers crossed. Hopefully they'll get to you. They seem to be looking at their case numbers. They have accepted cases up to the 40,000. So they're only a couple of months behind in terms of backlog. So there's a good chance, actually, that you'll get your interview over the next couple of months. Fingers crossed for you. Case number is 47,000. Did I have any chance this year? Right now, the whole thing depends on your individual embassy, right? If your embassy is doing well, then you'll be fine. Algiers embassy is doing well. They're taking, for example, in April they took 229 cases. In March they took 360 cases. They are taking a lot of cases, and their case numbers shows they reached cases up to about 36,000 with a couple of other high cases, one at 57,000, one at 45,000. So they are taking higher case numbers. And again, they're probably only a couple of months backlogged. So you've got a good chance. I think there's a good chance for you in Algeria. Okay. Blessed from Ghana. Can the forms be filled without a passport? We talked about that. What about the DV 2020-21 decision? I already talked about that right at the beginning. The appeal has not been decided yet. Hi, Brett. I've been scheduled for an interview. However, I'm not able to get my family to join me for the interview at the appointment date. I will, however, be able to bring them at a later date. Well, Freddie, you need to sort this out. You've got a once-in-a-lifetime chance. What is keeping your family from joining you at the interview? If they don't join you at the interview, it's going to be very complicated to get them visas later through the DV lottery. And if you therefore want them to emigrate once you've moved to America, you'll have to go through an I-130 process, which can take a lot of money, is very complex, and takes a long time, can take years. Okay, so if you've got any sense at all, you'll do whatever the hell you can to get your family with you at the interview. Okay, don't mess around with this. Literally, this is a once-in-a-lifetime chance. You don't want to mess around with this. Okay. Murat says, I got my visa issued. Oh, great. Well done, Murat. Glad about that. Georgia. Another one complaining about Sydney. So Sydney has not been scheduling any interviews with no 2NL sent out since early March and has sent out less than 40 2NLs for DV 2023, according to Zarthisius. Why could this be? I'm on Zarthisius' site. They've sent out more than 40. So, what you're really... So, yeah, they've sent out way more than 40. There's 40, 86, 101. They've sent out 101 interviews, which each interview includes derivatives, so that's probably about 200 people. I expect them in this year to maybe issue around about 300 or so, 250, 300, something like that. So they're not really far behind. Your only real complaint is that they haven't scheduled any in April, right? Because the last ones were sent out on March 24th. Sydney tends to be scheduled at the end of the month, right? So hold your horses, keep your knickers on. It's probably an inappropriate thing to say to a woman, but I'm British, so I'm sure you can handle it. And you'll be fine. There'll be some more interviews scheduled, I would think, probably this coming week, right? And yes, that means it could be in the first few days of next month, but that will be for June interviews, right? April, May, June, yeah. Be for June interviews, which is all they're missing at the moment. The March 2NLs, were for May interviews. So they're fine. Honestly, I don't think there's a problem in Sydney. I'm not aware of any problems in Sydney. I think you're going to be fine. So, you'll be all right. Just fingers crossed. What's your take on Ankara performance so far this year? Terrible, actually. I don't know what the hell's going on at Ankara. Let me look at the numbers, but there's a lot of people complaining about Ankara. And, it's very, what's the word? It's very localized normally. Ankara gets very strong Turkish community, complaining going on, or very vocal, etc. when they don't do well. But yeah, there's something going on there clearly. They have sent out 2NLs in April for June. They did send out some in March for May, but they're not sending out enough. And their numbers, their highest case numbers, they've just got Mostly they've got case numbers under 8,000. They've got a few now that are above 8,000, but they're restricting so many people. They need to get off their asses and do a bit more. So, Missouri, what's the justification for giving out African visas to other regions? If a region doesn't use its allocated visas, then those visas can be distributed to other regions. That doesn't happen right at the beginning of the year. That happens late in the process. But that's the way it works. I mean, if they didn't do that, those visas would be wasted if there are not enough African cases being approved to take those visas. Now, it would be better if more Africans would go to interview, of course, but there are a number of embassies in Africa, key, critical, important embassies, that are not doing enough work. And so that's what the problem is. So this whole thing is not, I mean, there are certain lawyers, there's one particular lawyer I can think of right now, who no doubt would claim this is racism, which is a stupid thing to say, considering this whole thing is about bringing people from all sorts of races from all over the world. Why he thinks they would pick on Africa, I don't know, but he said it before. And so, is this anti-African? No, it's not anti-African. It's the reason is down to certain embassies in Africa that are screwing it up for Africans, and that's the reasoning. It's not some centralized decision, because in fact KCC are scheduling a lot of cases everywhere and doing what they can, but they can't repair the damage caused by a few embassies that are supposed to be doing more work, like Accra and Nairobi and so on. So in that scenario, KCC will simply do what they can to issue as many visas as they can, including redistributing allocated unused visas to other regions. That's the way it works. That's actually what the law says they should do. Okay, so there you go. Naveed, case number is AS 21,000 and the age of visa bulletin remains the same for certain months. Is there a chance to increase? I was asked about this earlier in this call. They may increase. There is a chance that they will increase. And you're not too far above the number. So you've got some hope. But I don't know for a fact that they're going to increase. You'll have to wait and see. Okay. What advice do you have for someone who won the DV as a derivative, is living in another country than first applicant in terms of interview location? Get your ass on a plane. That's the advice. Like, if you're a derivative and the principal applicant has got the interview arranged in some other country, you fly to that other country and get your bloody visa. And that may be inconvenient, that may be expensive, but you're comparing the inconvenience and expense to a lifetime in America. So you get off your bloody ass and you do that, right? It's not a complicated decision. Okay, you're not going to get your visa some other way. It's not necessarily going to be convenient for you, and it's going to come with some expense. But we're talking about a lifetime of living in America, so you'll get off your ass and you'll do it. That's what you'll do. Okay. I don't know. Sometimes people need a bit of a talking to, I suppose. Alexei, hello, Britt. Thank you for your videos and answering questions. It was very helpful for me. Got the immigrant visa 2 weeks ago. Wish you all the best. That was really good. Congratulations, Alexei. That's awesome. Okay. Oh, latest statistics on Accra Embassy. Accra, they keep me awake at night. They have done for years. They've always misbehaved in general in terms of the number of visas they issue for the number of people they interview is always low. They deny a lot of cases, etc. But they've started to sort of really misbehave in terms of the number of visa interviews that they will accept, and that's really inappropriate, but that's what they've done. So here's what they did. As of January the 1st, 2023, we know that they had accepted 125 cases prior to that point, right? Then they took 30 more cases in January, 30 in February, 30 in March, and 25 in April. And so they are setting that cap. I've seen reports directly from the embassy in court findings, in court documents, etc., where they have actually said, yeah, our cap for interviews is 30 interviews or whatever. So seeing this 30 number and now the 25 number is not a surprise. And I should imagine they'll do 25 again in May and June, because they tend to set the number and then stay there for a few months. That's just their sort of the way they tend to operate. I don't think there's going to be any way that they will do enough interviews in DV 2023. Honestly, I wish we could do something to stop them. There's a special place in hell for people that do that, that screw up people's chances of a changing of their lives, you know. But that's what the numbers are anyway. Algeria issued TK visas and 1,200 visas pending, so only 500 visas left from 7% allocated from 55k. No, your math is all over the place. So the visas pending, there's no such thing as visas pending. I think you mean ready. So let's have a look at Algeria for a second. Let's just check your numbers. Okay. So Algeria have issued so far 1,954 with 9 on AP. This is Friday's number. So just under 2,000. They've got 1,270 cases ready. Ready is not pending. Ready is simply the visa interview has been arranged, and it may happen in the future, but some of these 1,270 will already have been arranged for previous months, and the people never showed up for the interview. And so there won't be 1,270 visas issued from those 1,270 readies. Nothing like, maybe 600 or so. So that's 2,600. Let's say it's 2,600, right? However, that does not mean it's all Algerians, right? So if I was living in Algeria, I could interview there. That doesn't mean that's all Algerians, right? That's just Africa region. It could be from other regions, right? So, and actually, they've taken 2 from Asia, 2 from Europe. So, you know, there are other people other than Algerians. Now, 7% of 55,000 is 3,850 or something like that, right? So we're nowhere near the capacity, even for Algeria, let alone Algerian embassy, which is not the same, right? So relax. Again, relax your knickers. You don't need to worry. Oh, and then the last question you say, do you think it will go for current? Look, current in Africa, the number is already current, right? There's so few cases that are not current at the moment. You know, a few hundred, I mean, not even a few hundred, pathetically small number of cases that are not current. So we're already current in Africa, essentially. I mean, you know, there's almost no one who's not able to get a visa interview. So it's not about making Africa current, okay? Freddie says, if my family can't join me for the scheduled interview because they live in a different country, yeah, what should I tell the consular officer? Yeah, what you should tell the consular officer, as I said to you earlier, Freddie, is that you're a lunatic that's trying to screw up your own chances. If you literally just turn up without your family, that's what you should tell the consular officer. Okay. Hope I've made myself clear on that. Prince, what about Lagos, Nigeria? They haven't done anything. They haven't done a thing. It's left with 3 months. They've not scheduled any 2NL so far this fiscal year. Yeah, I know. Can the embassy go the whole fiscal year without interviewing anyone? Yep, they can. That's it. They can. It sucks, but that's exactly what they can do. Now, of course, Nigeria doesn't. There's no Nigerians allowed to enter the lottery, but there will be people from other countries who have won, who live in Nigeria, and they should be interviewing those people. But Nigeria have decided, for whatever reason, not to interview those people. Will that change in the last few months? I don't know. I hope so. Good luck with that. Yeah, fingers crossed. Hello, Simon. My wife in Africa won DV 2023 and we got 2NL, but I'm currently in Europe as a political asylum seeker. So I could not appear with her at an interview. What advice do you have? Oh God, it's the same as the other one, right? If you currently you don't mention if, so I could not appear with her at the interview. So she already interviewed, and you didn't get there. Well, you were a silly person, frankly. So the only advice I can give, if that's what you've already done, you've already pulled that trigger. I would have told you to get your ass out of Europe, back to your home country or wherever your wife was to interview with her. That's what I would have done, right? Um, you should have done that. Now, since you didn't do that, your wife will have to go ahead of you and sponsor you later, and it will take a long time, and it will be expensive and complicated. But that's the decision you made when you decided not to go for an interview with her. The other thing you could have done was your wife could have moved to another country. If you were in fear for your life or something about going back to your own country, she could have gone to another country. She could have moved there, and you both could have been interviewed together. That's, again, something you should have done. But now is not the time to be asking that question. Before was the time to be asking that question and acting more appropriately. So, unfortunately, this process is not about your convenience. It's about a once in a lifetime chance, and you will jump through the fiery hoops if you have to do so to get this green card. And of course, the fact that you're in political asylum in Europe has got nothing to do with the USA. They don't care. That's not interesting to them. So the fact that you have to break your asylum terms or whatever in Europe to leave and go back, nobody cares. From an American point of view, maybe Europe would. Maybe that would screw up your chances in Europe for asylum. But who cares at that point? You've got a green card coming. So, I don't know what you were thinking, but you already made that choice, it sounds like. Okay. The date of birth of my high school certificate is different from my other document. Your date of birth is established by your birth certificate, not your school certificate. I'm perfectly aware there are some countries where people tend to lie about their age when they're enrolling in school because of various localized factors. And in fact, the COs know and understand that. But they don't look at your age on the education document. They look at your age from the birth certificate, right? The only thing that they're trying to do is make sure that the person mentioned on the education document is you, right? But they're not looking to establish your date of birth from the education document, okay? Nicole, you've answered from earlier. I sent my DS260 on May 9th and got an email reply from KCC that my form was processed maybe for previous... maybe my previous J1 visa delayed things. I'll try to remain patient and optimistic. Well, I've never known actually a J1 visa to delay things, but at some point they should have sent you an email. If you asked them what your status was, if you emailed KCC, they would send you an email that says you are current for interview processing. That is the point at which your DS260 has been processed and you've been allocated to the queue for the embassy. And so you should be in that status by now. And if so, then you'd probably expect to get your 2NL maybe in the next week. So I would actually put $5 on that bet. It's likely that you'll get your 2NL in the next week. So let me know in a week's time whether I was right or not. If not, I guess it will be the following month, and again towards the end of the month. So that would be the end of May. Okay, fingers crossed for you. I bet I'm going to be right. Baho. That's an interesting name. Thanks for all your help, Mr. Simon. As I'm 2023 winner with Air 58,000, I have my interview scheduled in Japan already this May 18th. Please, any advice? Same advice I gave the person earlier who asked about London. Japan's a very formal country. They appreciate organization. Be organized with your documents. Make sure you've read all the instructions. Make sure you understand which police certificates you're supposed to present. It's not only the country you're living in now, it can be countries you've lived in before, right? So make sure you go through the instructions and you'll be fine, okay? good luck with that. What is the right time of filing the DS260 after being selected as DV winner? The right time is typically I say to people, look, don't go so fast that you make a bunch of mistakes. But let's say you're selected in the May 6th. There will be some people who will submit their DS260 that very night, right? And if they've got a very simple background, if it's a single applicant with limited travel history, probably in Western Europe, let's say, that sort of person could be processed pretty quickly. Now, if your case number is high, it doesn't really matter if you submitted your DS260 fast. You can't be interviewed before your case number is current anyway. But, generally speaking, people should submit their DS260s fairly quickly, but not so quickly that they make stupid fundamental mistakes that will need correcting later on anyway. That's kind of silly. So usually I would say within the first few days after May 6th will be good for most people. Some people should actually delay their DS260. So if you've got a very high case number in the region, if you are concerned about future non-immigrant interviews, that can be a concern, because submitting the DS260 declares immigrant intent, and that can screw some people up. So if you've got a high case number, you might want to slow down a little bit. And there are some people who don't want to go through the process too fast. They, for various reasons, want to delay their interview. Even if they've got a low case number, they might want to delay their interview. So those people should slow down their DS260 submission. But generally speaking, for most people, fairly quickly, but not so fast that you don't follow the process well. Okay. Case number is 21K. Case location is Nairobi. Nairobi is going to screw you over. You're probably going to have a problem. I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news if you didn't already understand, but Nairobi is restricting the number of people that it's interviewing, and it's going to cost a lot of people their chances. And unfortunately, you may be one of them, even though your case number is low. Digatu, do you need your sponsor's tax returns, passport, bio for DS260 filing? Oh God, no. No, you don't need any of that to file your DS260. What you do need later on, when you're going for interview, typically you'll get your sponsor to give you an I-134, which is a affidavit of support. And with that, they should give you a tax statement of some sort, tax filing, which is usually a 1040, a W-2 if they've got a job, which is an annual report based on how much income you've earned from an employer. Sometimes you can use a 1099 for the same reason. Recent pay slips, and a photo ID. That's basically what you carry with you to the interview, along with an I-134. But none of that is necessary for filing the DS260. Okay. Addis, Addis is another. Let's see what Addis is doing. Jesse has got a special hatred for Addis. Well, okay, so slightly better. So in March, they took one case. One case on March 3rd, and then they took 17 more on March 24th. In April, they took 72 cases. So it's looking up a little bit, but it's not as much as they should be doing. I mean, Ethiopia should be doing 250 interviews per month. Why are they not doing that? I mean, it's crazy. So they are unfortunately restricting the interviews quite a lot. The highest case number they've taken so far is 21,000. And they've issued so far 252 visas. It's a pathetic performance from a big embassy. It's disgraceful. So, to those at Ethiopia Embassy, you suck, and you should do a better job, frankly. Okay. Speak French. Why would I speak French? I'm British. Why would I speak French? I speak French because I learned that in school, but why would I speak French? I'm a British person living in America, talking about a green card for America. I might as well speak Swahili more than I would speak French, right? That would make more sense, actually, with the number of people um, that come from France. So anyway, no is my answer, or no is my answer. I'll speak Spanish if you want. Hello, Britt. Tim here. I've been living in Arizona. Oh, fantastic. I was just in Arizona. However, I'm still struggling with getting life going. SSA hasn't sent me a social security card yet. There isn't any clear process. Oh, you've been there a month. Okay, there is a clear process. You've got to understand the social security office. You've got to go there and you've got to make a nuisance of themselves. And you've got to be, when they tell you something like, oh, no, you can't get that. You can't have a social security number. They'll tell you bullshit, and you have to be very insistent. And you say, "Look, here's my visa, here's my birth certificate. You've got to take certain ID with you. I've entered the country. I'm a legal immigrant here. I'm a lawful permanent resident. Now give me an effing SSN." You have to be quite blunt with them, frankly, and don't leave there until you've done that. They will give you, if you give them any opportunity to send you away to wait, they would rather put work off until tomorrow rather than doing the work today. So when someone says to you, "Oh, you applied through, you've got it through the DS-260, oh, you should wait for that then, and it might take a while." No, not acceptable. After you've been there a month, it clearly hasn't been organized correctly. It should have been with you already. So you say, "No, I want to apply for my social security number right here, right now. Let's do it." Right? Be polite if you have to. I mean, I shouldn't tell you to be effing and blinding at them, but be firm and forceful and polite, right? And if necessary, ask for a manager, ask for a supervisor, because frankly, a month without a social security number, it's a pain in the ass. You shouldn't be enduring that. So yeah, go do that at the social security number, social security office. Okay. Stephen Owosu has got his visa now. Case number 48,000 coming to the States next week. Fantastic. Good luck with the trip. Make sure you don't miss your plane. Islamabad, yeah, it's another embassy that really doesn't have its own local cases because Pakistanis are not eligible. But again, they're restricting. They should be doing better. They're stuck on around about 15,000, which means that they're quite well behind now. Obviously, most people would be from Asia. They've issued 204 visas to Asia applicants, 4 to EU, and 1 to Africa. So they should be doing more, basically. It's a shame that they're not doing more. But fingers crossed, maybe they'll put it through in the end. Okay. Okay, so your current for interview processing, still haven't received 2NLs. Any predictions? No predictions, first of all, but your chance of interview depends entirely on your embassy. If your embassy is doing well, then you'll get an interview. If they're not doing well, you won't get an interview. It's literally as simple as that. Is the adjustment of status numbers included in the SEAC data? No, SEAC data doesn't track adjustment of status. There'll be about 1,000 to 1,500 adjustment of status cases each year, roughly speaking. So we just know that a little bit, and you just mentally add that in, but it's not in the SEAC data, no. Endo says, I won the lottery, but they passed my number already and I haven't got an interview date yet. Yes, again, it's based on your embassy, okay? It's not a question of passing a number. That's not really how it works. Somebody with a higher number than you can go before you if you weren't processed in time. But the real crux of this is what your embassy is doing, okay? Whether they're operating well or not. And you don't tell me which embassy you're at. Miko, interview in June, Montreal. Montreal have a tendency, they were handing out a lot of DS5535s. So Google that form, have a look at it. And if you can download a copy, you may even want to fill that out and take it with you to the interview and present it if asked, okay? But if you've completed your DS260 properly with all the data, all the history, then it tends to reduce, I believe, the number of times they ask the DS5535. But anyway, so that's Montreal. Got a newborn Canadian son. Will he be eligible for green card since Canadians are not eligible? Yeah, they take your country's eligibility. A child or a derivative, any derivative, a child or a spouse gets the green card allocated to your country of birth, your country of eligibility. Okay, it doesn't matter that he's Canadian. Okay, so yes, you can do that. Hopefully you've already included that child in your DS260. If not, you need to contact Montreal Embassy and make sure that they know you're bringing your infant son with you. Okay, and and you need a passport and a birth certificate for the son, and you need a medical. Okay. So Brenda Blue 88 says, "Hey Simon, my father was a DV 2023 winner and he got his visa. Good. My mother, derivative, got 221 refusal because of medical reasons. They've told her to wait for the results. Do you think she has any chance?" How can I answer that? I don't know what the medical reasons were. I don't know what, I can't answer that. I can't guess. I mean, I can tell you that some people in this situation have received visas, yes, but I don't know anything about your mother's case. Okay. Samurai. Name so good, he took it twice. KCC has changed my interview to Italy. What? Because my mum is a citizen of Italy. Is it good to have an interview in Italy? I mean, it's fine to have an interview in Italy. They're a good embassy. They're not very busy, but they should really have scheduled you where you live. It's not based on where your mum comes from. That's got nothing to do with it. It's to do with the address you gave on your DS260. So, yeah, it's a bit strange. Okay, Cherry Hill says hello. Hello, Cherry. The apple, we've got the cherry, then we've got the apple. We've got a whole bunch of fruit trees. How many cases have been handled in Nairobi Embassy so far? How many per month for this year? You can check this all. What I'm looking at is Zarthesius's website. And so you can check yourself. It's not that I've got special information here. So let me just show you present, share screen, entire screen. This one, here you go. You can have a look at it yourself. This is Nairobi. This is on Zarthesius's site. These are all the interviews that have been sent out by region, etc. This is what they're doing. This is for Nairobi. It's not enough, I can tell you that. Again, they should be sending out. I mean, they're supposed to be doing interviews for local applicants as well as some other countries from around there, right? So they should easily be taking 250 interviews per month. So 64 in April is not enough. 28 28 and 133. I mean, okay, so that was 160. They're getting up there, but why did they only take 64 in April? It's annoying. Anyway, so that's yeah. So that's Nairobi. But go ahead and have a look at that data on Zarthesius's site. Okay. Shankmate, good to catch you from Aussie. I'm always miss the live streams. I'm glad I'm doing it this time because I'm getting some Aussies. OC 1500, which is good. However, my DS260 status is at KCC. Yeah. Every case, you're on SEAC, it will say at NVC. That's normal for every case until you're scheduled for interview. And then on the DS260 in the SEAC system at the top, it'll say at KCC. That simply means you haven't been scheduled for interview yet. It doesn't say anything about your status. You can follow up with KCC. And hopefully they will send you an email reply that says you're current for interview processing. that particular phrase is in the first line or so of the email. Current for interview processing. And then, yes, like the other two people who are talking about Sydney, I should imagine they're going to issue some 2NLs in this next week coming. They'll probably issue 15 to 20 2NLs. That's my expectation. That'll be for June interviews. And you may be in that batch. You may be in the batch after that, which will be a month later. Okay, so it will be for July. But I do expect Sydney to do all the work they need to do for this year. I'm not worried about Sydney. Okay, so you should be fine. So there you go. Right. Do you know if there are statistics on number of people who apply for the DV lottery by year and by country? Yeah, there is. So all you got to do is, let me just show you my screen. Share my screen. Turn the screen. This one here. Right. So you bring up Google and you type in DV lottery statistics. Right, and go to this first link that comes up here. And it's got a bunch of stuff. It's got, for example, number of online entries received during each registration period, and it breaks it down by the years. So 2019 to 2021, for example. And if I zoom in on this, you can see for Africa, for example, for Namibia, they have these columns are entries, derivatives, and totals for each of the 3 years, right? So let's say Namibia, struggling with saying that, a total of 1,357, which is about half and half between entrants and then the family members. That was 2019. In 2020, they did about the same, 1,240, and then significantly less people entered in 2021 for whatever reason, which is the latest year we've got that number for. Now, if you look at some other countries like Cameroon, we're talking about 310,000 entries with 147,000 derivatives for a total of 458,000 in 2019. 2018, it went up to 476. And again, in fiscal year 21, it went down. So 21 was obviously low. That was the year of COVID, and I guess that reduced the number of entries. That was probably a good year, actually, for entries in terms of chances. But anyway, yes, that's the answer to your question. Just Google DV lottery statistics. Come here, have a look at it. You can check any country you like. Right? It's amazing what's out there. All right. So, oh, and by the way, let me put that back. By the way, if I go back a second, you can get other information as well. So that's number of entries. That first section is number of entries. Second section here is the number of entrants, selected entrants in each year, right, per country. And then they got visa issuances and adjustment of status, again, for several years. But these two sections are behind in terms of the data, but it gives you an idea of what's going on, okay? All right. Okay, another one from Aussie. Another Aussie, awesome. I rarely get to speak to so many Aussies, so this is awesome. From Australia, if we're selected this coming May, is it worth us going for it if we know that we'll also need to submit the I-601 waiver? Current processing time for 601 is 22 to 25 months. It's really, it's up to you, right? I mean, you can't get the waiver until you've actually got a reason to get the waiver, right? Excuse me. But you can speak to the embassy and see whether in your particular circumstances applying for the DV lottery, whether something would be done faster, right? And it may be that you could obtain that waiver faster. You could speak to them. You could also speak to a lawyer, right? But first of all, you've got to be selected. I mean, your chance of selection in most regions, other than OC, is pretty awful. Like it's like 1 in 100 years in Africa, if that. It's actually closer to 1 in 200 years. But in OC region, funnily enough, you've got much higher chances of selection because there are there are more visas available for a relatively small number of people that enter. So you've got a fairly good chance of selection. But if you are selected, personally, I would immediately speak to a lawyer or contact the embassy and discuss the waiver and how fast you could get it with the DV lottery process. Okay. So yeah, but fingers crossed for you to be selected anyway. All right. Okay. Done just over an hour here, so I'm just going to take a couple more questions, then we'll call it a day. Another time, sir, my case number is 21506, and the high case number in Nairobi sent to NL is 21243. It's got bugger all to do with your number. And, you know, it's all to do with when you became... I created a video on this recently, just a few weeks ago, very detailed video that explains exactly why cases above your case number could go before you to interview. What's important is the day that you became eligible to be in the AV queue, the queue of people in AV status. And so the fact that, you know, people above you, let's say, or close to you is, you know, it doesn't make any difference, right? So you just have to wait and see what happens, but your embassy is not doing well. So that's not a good thing. Simon, my namesake, says, can you please confirm that submitting a DS-260 shows immigrant intent and could therefore conflict with either the visa waiver program or E2 non-immigrant visa? So let me take this in stages. I can confirm 100% that is a declaration of immigrant intent. The DS-260 is an application for an immigrant visa. So pretty freaking obviously, it's a declaration of immigrant intent, and it can be used in that way. They are allowed to take it into account in non-immigrant cases. Now, can you get a visa waiver? Yes, you can, even after submitting a DS-260. Can you get a non-immigrant visa? Yes, you can, even after submitting a DS-260. And so it's not a complete blocker for visa waiver programs or non-immigrant visas, but it is a factor that they can take into account, particularly on non-immigrant visa processes. I don't believe it's a factor that is taken into account on a visa waiver program. Normally the visa waiver program is produced automatically, and I don't believe they're checking DS-260s on that. But anyway, back to the original point. Yes, it's for sure. It can be a problem for future non-immigrant visas, which is why if you've got a very high case number when you're selected, you must have a serious think about whether that's going to be a problem for you. But in any non-immigrant visa application, unless it's got dual intent, like an H1 has, for example, you need to be showing that you plan to live by the terms of your visa, and you will go home at the end of your visa. So you have to show, you know, ties to your home country, reasons that you have to return, family, job, house, whatever it might be, that you're keeping ties with the old country, right? And if you don't do that, then the highest percentage of refusals in non-immigrant visas tends to be a suspicion that they are allowed to have that says, we have a suspicion that you won't go home at the end of your visa. And they are able to take several factors into account about that, which is, have you got family? Have you got a job that you're going to go back to? You know, what's your personal setup? And have you ever applied for an immigrant visa? That's one of the things that they can take into account, right? So I hope that's clear. Jerry, you said hello earlier, now you've got to ask a question. So I'm the winner of DV 2022, got my visa last April. Great help for DV winner. Now living in New York and hope to meet you soon. Again, thanks so much for your help. Oh, that's very kind of you, Sherry, to say hi. I'm glad to hear you're doing well in New York. What a great city that is. It's always good. Okay. Any prediction for the visa bulletin in June? No, just that there will be a visa bulletin in June. CN 20,000 for Kathmandu and Nepal. You're asking for a prediction there. I don't have a prediction. other than to say Nepal normally gets most of their selectees normally get current. That's normal. There is a tradition that folks will always hide their case number. Is there any known security risk that someone can screw one's case number? The problem is not giving a case number. You can give your case number. The problem is you only need about 3 pieces of information about a person, including their case number, in order to sort of get into their profile. Now, so to me, I would not tell someone my precise case number, but it doesn't really matter if you publicize it. It's not the end of the world. What's important is that you don't give information to people actually close to you, friends, family, that may have some reason to try and mess around with your application, who then go into your DS260 application, right? And with only a little bit of information about you, they can do that, right? So generally speaking, keep your own private business to yourself, right? It's common sense. But in the SEAC website, we can see all the case numbers that are out there. So the fact that there is an Africa, I don't know, I'm just making this up, an Africa 21,201, that doesn't mean anything, right? It only means something if somebody knows that case number and knows that you're the person who has it and knows your birthday and knows your email, right? They need to know a few things about you. So just be a little bit careful. Shankmate, yeah, I guess your MC was MC. Yeah, it was Sydney rather. Okay. Do you think transferring case in AVQ is to performing MC like Gangzhou can work, or it's too late? When you're in the AVQ, KCC don't want to move you, right? They actually reply to people and say, no, we can't unlock your case, you can't move, you can't do anything. So the only way to do it is if you can get the embassy you'd like to move to contact KCC on your behalf to say, we are ready to take Johnny's case, please send Johnny's case to us. And in that circumstance, KCC might take you out of the AVQ for some other embassy. But it's a rare thing to happen because it requires real cooperation from the embassy that you're moving to. And there's not a lot of incentive for them to do that, frankly. Okay. Okay, Lethu, last question here. Thank you, Brits Iron. Been in the US since March 2, 2023. Got my visa the previous day in Joburg. Nice. Followed all the rules, was over-prepared, but they never asked the DS5535. Great, well, that's good. When you're over-prepared, you're confident. When you're confident, you come across very well in an interview, and you appear to have nothing to hide because you're just confident and relaxed and you've got everything. That's why you over-prepare. You actually don't over-prepare because you're expecting to be asked for lots of information. You over-prepare in order to avoid being asked lots of information, right? Because you then feel so confident that you could answer any question. Yeah, I've got that document here. I've got that document. Oh, you want to see a DS5535? Yeah, I've got that for you, right? If you're in that mindset, then frankly, you're super confident, you're super relaxed, and they like that. CEOs like that, right? They don't see you as a problem in any way. So congratulations. You're in, you've been in the US, you didn't say where, but I hope you're having a great time, a great life. All right, good luck with that. Okay, everybody, I think I'll call that a day. It's quite a long session already. I'm sorry I have been so bad in being online for the last couple of weeks, but I hope you understand I was spending some time with my family. I had a fantastic journey trip through California, Nevada, Arizona, went to the Grand Canyon, camped in the bottom of the Grand Canyon, did some amazing things, did some off-roading in my Jeep, and had a great time with with a grown-up daughter of mine. I got children from a previous marriage and grandchildren. So I had a grown-up daughter of mine with me and a 13-year-old grandson, one of the grandchildren I have. But we had a fantastic time. So I hope you'll understand that I just took a little bit of time out. All right, everybody. Thanks. Have a great day. Please do subscribe. And if you've got any other questions, please ask them at britsimonsayers.com, and I will certainly answer those questions there for you. All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.